Hi everyone, it's Katie here with a special episode of John A. Light's Sink or Swim, where we work to throw a life preserver out to anyone who needs one. How do we do that? By having special guests on like we have today. And this is one I know you're going to want to share with one or two of your loved ones, hopefully save some lives. John's first guest today is Patty Stovall out of Northwest Indiana, the Chicagoland area, and Dr. Genty, world-renowned neurosurgeon, one of his closest friends. And John, you need no introduction.
Hi, everybody. So I'm glad everybody got together for this. And me and the doctor have done several shows. And I know, Patty, you've done a lot of work in the field since, unfortunately, you lost your child like I lost mine. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the stuff you're doing?
Well, currently I have a organization called Sons of Sarah, which came out of the loss of my daughter. Last year, when I went to Washington, I was really moved by some of the things. I was angry with seeing so many losses of individuals, kids, people who had lost children. And when I started to really dig into the numbers, it touched me in a lot of ways. I do have a background in substance abuse. I was an addictions counselor in my early career and a nonprofit. And so I really felt that in my community, there was a lot of silence and stigma around addictions and this issue. People weren't talking about it. So I thought, well, I was going to put my pain into purpose. So that's what I did. And I came back last year in September, and instead of putting myself in a place of going to bed and crying every night, I created a nonprofit and pushed forward. And so we did, the nonprofit is around raising awareness, not only locally, but making sure that my voice is heard nationally as well, doing some speaking and reaching out to many organizations and collaborating. So it's quite interesting that it moved so quickly into a 501c3 in just 3 months short. But we did put out our first billboard campaign on January 1st and put up 4 billboards locally here to say that fentanyl is poisoning our community and our children. And that's what happened to my daughter. So that's kind of where we're starting here, is to say, hey, we're here.
So my personal friend is Dr. Toskesi, for people who don't know. We're like brothers, and so he's the one that helped me through losing my daughter and some of the things I didn't understand medically. And I was aware of fentanyl, but I didn't understand. I didn't have an understanding medically about it and the effects and where she stood when we kept her on life support. And he's obviously helped me through one of the worst times of my life, or the worst time of my life, actually. And I call him by his first name, Genty, and for the people out there. Gent, can you tell us, as a doctor, what you see and what we can do and what your thoughts are on some of this?
Yes, John. Thank you for inviting me in this meeting together and to talk about this, I would call it tragedy that is affecting a lot of young people, a lot of families. Everybody hears about it, but when you see someone that you know, someone from your family, you see the real tragedy that is happening to the young people and to the kids, I would say. Fentanyl is one of the problems that we talk a lot in the media and social media and TVs. And a lot of people just hear about it, but I wanted to talk about medical perspective of fentanyl. It's a very powerful drug. In medicine, it's a drug that we use it for purposes of reducing pain for a patient who really needs to be comforted through procedures, or when they are in the ICU, or where they need this medical care. And that helps doctors and nurses and staff to keep those patients going through these procedures or through that health problem without pain or much distress for the body. Fentanyl is a medication that we give in the hospital, well dosed according to the patient. We measure the dose of fentanyl according to the patient, how much he needs to be sedated, how much he needs for the pain. But we are aware that some of the side effects may be like respiratory distress or suppression can happen. So we have all the monitoring possible in the hospital to check on those patients, the vitals, the respiration, the breathing. I would like to mention a little bit the pain, the process of pain, because we use it mainly for pain, it's not recreational. So the pain is something that body doesn't like. It's a reaction toward the environment, toward the stimulus that cause pain to the skin, to the receptors, to the joints, to the head. And that pain is perceived from the receptors through a lot of transmitters. We call those neurotransmitters. And through that, the signal goes through the nerves to the brain. And there are certain areas in the brain that get the information, they don't like it, and they respond to it with producing some of the, I would call it opioids that are endogenous. The body produces those to decrease this pain. It doesn't get rid of the pain completely, but reduces the amount of pain. It just tells the patient that you are having something going on with your body, you are in pain, I'm going to help you somehow, however, we need to treat the problem. So those are the endogenous opioids. With the technology and the medicine development and what we have today, we have the opioids that are exogenous, like morphine, fentanyl, and other. They similarly goes into the body and goes to the receptors that modulate the pain. So they are mainly used for that. However, it's seen that they go in the centers, not only in the nerves, peripheral nerves, but also in the centers of the brain that just try to react to this stimulus of the receptors through exogenous opioids like fentanyl and produce probably dopamine or other neurotransmitters. And that initiates other effects of the opioids, like you feel euphoria, feeling better, or excitement, and it gives the body a sense of being good. However, if that goes to other certain areas like breathing or respiration, they can suppress that. And with that feeling of excitement, you might have, depending on the dose of the opioids, this suppression of the respiration, and without knowing, body goes into sleep and does not respond to the environment and doesn't breathe. So what happens if you don't breathe? You don't take the oxygen and the brain suffers. Mm-hmm. And if that goes for a certain time, not too long, even a few minutes, the brain starts to react and to swell, and we have damages that within time can be permanent and sometimes can be lethal. The patient won't survive. So I would say it's a drug that is powerful. It's used in medicine for good reasons. But I think when you don't know the dose, you don't know what drug you take, you don't have the monitoring with monitors that we have in the hospitals, you don't have a nursing staff and the doctors to monitor you, it's a very dangerous drug.
I agree. But we're looking at a lot of things that are a little different, I would have to say, because from my experience and my research, we're looking at illicit fentanyl that is being mixed with many things, that is cooked and made out of our country. And there are different things than just plain fentanyl. For my daughter's toxology report, She had carfentanil in there. She had many different things than just what she was given. So we're looking at murder. We're looking at drug-induced homicide. She went for one little thing and she got a whole lot. And now, not only that, we're looking at xylazine, which is not being put in these drugs. And that is also an issue in our country, because that does not, Narcan is not being, Narcan does not reverse that. So we have another issue on hand. So there's also a lot of things that are happening to cause problems in our country. I understand that we have fentanyl in a medical aspect, but we're looking at illicit fentanyl that's taking the life of these children or these young people today. And it's not just medical grade fentanyl. It's a whole different ballgame. And then when we get people who are making it, who don't know what they're doing, and they're putting all different kinds of things in there, it's a problem. It's a huge problem, especially when kids are going for a Xanax or a Percocet or an Adderall and they're getting illicit fentanyl. It's a problem.
Pat, you have a good point there, because like you said, I mentioned already the fentanyl as a drug in the hospital where it's well controlled, is given from the pharmacist in the hospital under the prescription of a doctor. And you have a very good point that the fentanyl that you get somewhere else can have a mixture of other drugs. Also, if it's not even from a doctor prescription, it doesn't take in consideration other medications that everyone can be, including alcohol. If you take opioids with alcohol, it creates an effect that is not good for the body and creates a cascade of problems that can be really, really dangerous. So I agree with you.
Absolutely.
Katie, to me, it's almost an arsenic. I'm really not understanding why a drug dealer, knowing that somebody's seeking out a Percocet or a diet pill or an Adderall to study for most of these kids to stay up, or if they're driving cross country, why, knowing the effects and how deadly it is, why they're selling it to our kids, knowing that there's a very high chance that they will be murdered and not overdose, be murdered by these pills. I'm really not understanding why these guys on the street are mixing these drugs with other drugs and selling it, because they're killing their clients that aren't seeking these drugs. And I know recently, Katie, we've been working with schools. What have you done? And you just met with somebody at a school district. Can you tell us what we're working on right now?
Right. Yes. I spoke at a school board meeting last night in my local town here. And one of the things that we're working on is a project to just show people step by step how simple it is to get the Narcan installed in the schools. It's free from the government. Everybody gets two, or nonprofits, which I know, Patty, you're involved with that as well. But just to make sure that those are there. You know, they may not have a drug problem in their town yet, but we want John's fans to be able to go to their superintendent. It's been a very simple process, and unfortunately, the superintendent of our school knows a lot about it already. Fortunately for me, it makes things easier, but unfortunately for the whole situation, it's not good. But Patty, you had mentioned that xylazine, and John, you and I had talked about that before, where the Narcan does not help with that. So it's just that chase game of trying to stay ahead of the drug dealers and the cartels who are doing this. But Narcan's a start, I guess.
Patty, what can we use for that to combat that? Is there anything right now?
I would like to address first the question that you had about why they are using the fentanyl in the first place and giving it to people, because my daughter had an addiction. So if you're giving fentanyl to someone with an addiction, and drug dealers don't know if someone has an addiction or they don't. And so when they are giving fentanyl to someone who has an addiction, which my daughter started with an addiction with pills about maybe 8 years ago, and then it moved into heroin. And so when you're giving it to someone who is in an active addiction, it brings them back. It brings them back. So they're going to be a good client. And so now they're addicted to fentanyl as well. And so they're going to come back more and more and more. Problem is that they don't care. Dealers don't care. So they're going to give it to anybody. But see, what happened was my daughter got clean. And so she was clean for 9 months. And then she went out and she got one thing. She got a little cocaine, and it was pure fentanyl. It was with a little tiny bit of cocaine. And so she didn't make it because she was clean and it was pure fentanyl. And so, that's the problem. These dealers don't care. So they're going to give it to anybody. They're going to sell it to anybody because they just don't care if they don't know if these kids are addicts or not. And so that's one of the reasons why, they're buying it. And plus, some of the dealers don't even know that they're fentanyl because they're coming in from the country and they're thinking that they're, Adderall or Percocets or whatever. They don't even know themselves. And so
I just want to clarify something.
When they're being prosecuted, they're finding out themselves that it was fentanyl.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I wanted to clarify so people do understand why I asked you that question and your answer to your response. For the people that don't understand the dealers, if they put in fentanyl and not cocaine, fentanyl is very cheap. So the profit margin is incredible on a kilo of fentanyl, where you can make up to $1 million, believe it or not, on fentanyl. And with small amounts the doctor could tell you, Gente could tell you, a small amount of sand, grain-like sand, 2 particles is strong enough to possibly kill somebody, especially when you're mixing it with other illicit drugs, whether it's cocaine or something else to that effect, right, Doc?
Yes, fentanyl, we give it on the microgram mcg doses in the hospital. It's 100 times more powerful than morphine, regular. So imagine if you get something that you think is cocaine in that dose, it's a huge amount of dose for a body to deal with.
Yeah. My daughter had 47 micrograms of fentanyl.
Patty, Katie knows this because we work together on a regular basis, and the doctor's always with me. And one of the things I keep reaching out to is people have the ability to reach out, all of us, obviously television and some of the television shows we do and social media magazines, but we have unique ability, and I've tried to reach out to some of my old friends that are on the streets, guys that know me from the street from years ago, drug dealers, gangsters. We have the ability to give them knowledge to help us spread the word to the kids on the street that other people can't reach. And all these guys I'm speaking about and women I'm speaking about from the streets, from the hoods, from these neighborhoods, understand one thing. Yous all have children. Yous all have nephews, nieces, grandchildren. So this affects everybody. So when I reach out to these guys and I try to talk and I reach out across to not, people know I speak about being pro law enforcement, I'm pro veterans, I'm pro America. Part of that is all these guys' children, on whether they're street guys, whether they're police officers, first responders, veterans, we all have kids and grandkids out there. This isn't any longer about us, it's about them. And they have the ability to, when they listen to us, to write us, ask us questions under other names. It doesn't have to be under their own name, and have the ability to spread the word to try to help our communities to stop this fentanyl coming into our streets. And they have an obligation to their family, besides other people's families, to be motivated to do this. And this is beyond anybody, whatever kind of criminal activity you're doing. They're out there murdering our kids. This is murder. They're selling something to our children that have no knowledge it's in the drug, the drug of choice they're looking to buy. They're not looking to purchase a fentanyl. To me, it's an arsenic. It's almost a complete death sentence. and you're playing Russian roulette with one bullet in a chamber, and the more you're getting high, eventually you're going to overdose and be murdered by these pills. So I'm hoping people will reach out, listen to us, and contact us.
Yep. And on that note, Patty, could you tell us more about your daughter, Sarah?
Yeah, okay. Well, she had a really big heart. I mean, my mom and dad are both recovering 43 years. So we have a lot of recovery in our family. So she knew recovery. She was a great mom. She really loved animals, but she struggled. She struggled with some mental health issues, and she struggled with sharing who she was and her story. She would give you the shirt off her back, and then she was tough. She also was tough. She was street smart. She was street smart, and she was funny. I mean, she ran with some tough people in the street. She knew how to protect herself, and she did some crime. She did some crime. She stole the car from a halfway house. She stole my car from my driveway, and she did some time. She did 9 months in jail, but that 9 months in jail allowed her to get clean, and it allowed for me to spend some time with her face to face every day. It's my daughter.
When you said that she had 2 children, has 2 children.
Yeah. It was my time with her for once in a while, because we fought for her a lot every day. We fought for her every day. It was my time with her clean to laugh and help her and talk to her and just get to know her and be with her. And we had set for her to go to long-term treatment. When she got out, I went to pick her up. She had to be transferred she did some time. Had a warrant in Cook County. She got transferred from Indiana to Cook County. They let her out 24 hours. I went to pick her up. She came here and she left to the guy. There was a guy. And it only took 5 days, 6 days. And then we lost her.
Sorry to hear that. And for the people that don't know, her name was Sarah. And she's your child, your baby, and you got the blessing to spend time with them when she did get clean. So you could take that, with your heart, and you remember her as that baby when she's clean. And the problem is when they're using, what comes along with it, because they need money to buy, is criminality to survive. So that's a little unusual for the people that are listening and people that understand addiction. They're not criminals. They're people trying to survive of getting a drug that they're addicted to, or other drugs to heal what they need, and mentally what they need. So the people that are listening that need help, reach out to us. And the people that are listening that at one time was addicted and is clean, remember every person. Remember when you were in that position, every person you speak to, you could help. And if we can help one person, one life, and one family not suffer the pain I'm suffering, that you're suffering, that hundreds of thousands of people are suffering. They have people like Dr. Genti Duskezi that you can reach out through my website, reach out through my Instagram, John Elite. They can reach out to you, Patty, through all your organizations. You're running nonprofits, through Katie, but reach out and try to save somebody else's child. And, the ability of all of us to reach people, but we can't do anything unless they contact us also and try to help them. And, for the people that used to run around the streets with me, remember one thing, you all have families also. And it's, as a parent, as somebody with a conscience, we need to try to help as many people we can. and hopefully they join some of this, drives that we're involved with, organizations. And like I said, it doesn't have to be in their name. Anonymously, they can write us, contact us, give us names of people that are struggling. We'll try to help them. Doctor, what do you think as far as how can things change? What can we do?
So that's a very good question, and I think it's difficult for the time that we are living now. I think a lot of the legislation has changed toward the doctors to not prescribe opioids, especially in some states. In Pennsylvania, let's say, they check and we have an amount of painkillers that we can give to the patient, and we have to check that. It's one of the measures to stop the abuse with opioids. But I understand that a lot of patients are in pain and they need this type of medication. And sometimes I feel bad that it's affecting those patients. So that's one thing, and it's coming from the doctors. But I don't think that's a major problem in this country. As Patty said and John said, a lot of drugs are coming mixed and are not sold from the pharmacy, or the prescription from the doctors are sold by other people, and they are using it to make money, using the young, innocent people, I would say, that are addicted to these drugs. And first, it has to be a well control of where is this drug coming from. Right, that needs to be controlled first. Second, we need to make young people aware of this dangerous drug. It's like jumping from an airplane without a parachute, I would call it. It's an excitement that when you don't have a parachute, you fall, and what happened, right? The excitement of the beginning. So people need to be aware more and more about the dangers and the risks of taking those kind of drugs. I know the excitement and the life and recreation is part of life. We all want people to enjoy life, right? But we have to make them aware that there are risks with it, and it's not worth it taking those risks, and especially to lose your own life from that. And the third part is just to be like they do, and the police has a narcon, and the firefighters to be there when they see someone in need, they can give that treatment. But I see the solution more in preventing it, and do not let those drugs, like weapons, to be around and to kill innocent people.
You see on television on a regular basis, and you see them talking about taking a Second Amendment. And, people buy into it because they see bullets and they see guns. But these bullets and these guns don't kill. Nowhere in the numbers, and we stated those numbers on our last show, nowhere the numbers of the murders, overdoses of opioids and fentanyl, yeah, which over 100,000 plus and growing every year. Mm-hmm. So our government, our legislature, the open borders, and all this is contributing to the murders of our kids. And if people are going to talk about anything, they need to stop talking about the Second Amendment and protection of weapons as American citizens to protect their families from intruders or hunting or something positive. But this is a complete negative. You have 165,000, I'll repeat it, chemical labs that are being brought out of China. It's a $35 billion industry, pharmaceutical industry in the United States. And you have $1 billion that are going into the border. The Mexican government that is not controlling their border, it should go to state, it should go to private contracted agencies and see if they can do a better job. There's $1 billion that go into Mexico to the border that that money is not utilized correctly. Obviously, the corruption that is occurring between the border, the immigrants coming into this country, which I'm for immigration. Everybody hears me say, but not this way. Not what is going on. They're not getting the American dream. They're getting the American nightmare by what's occurring because it's not being done properly. But that money needs to go into private contracting to stop the flow of fentanyl in this country from China to Mexico, Mexico here, They're continuing to open up labs in Mexico so they can continue bringing it in as partners with China. It's an attack on our country. You're putting billions of dollars into Ukraine-Russia war, where they lost 15 to 20,000 people, and we all feel bad for what they lost. But those numbers are nothing compared to the incredible numbers of the American kids we're losing in this country, of 100,000 plus, that these numbers are growing year after year. They're doubling and tripling. So do we need a bomb to actually drop on our country the way those bombs are flowing in Ukraine and Russia, to people to understand what the difference is here? This is an attack. They're killing our kids every single day we wake up. 300 and better of our children are dying every single day.
I agree.
So
I agree.
why isn't our government not doing anything but talking? What is going on that they're allowing our kids to be killed? Why isn't that $100 billion going into saving? I keep pressing this issue because that kind of money should be at our border, should be at the Tijuana, San Diego, Mexico border, because that's where most of that fentanyl is coming in. For people who don't know, it's 40 to 60% of fentanyl is coming in from these locations. And why aren't we doing more about it? Why are they not attacking this? The way they're funding these wars is the question. And we know the answer to that question, because there's not money in protecting fentanyl. There's money in wars. There's stock in wars. There's equipment being sold and money being laundered in wars. And we need to get on our congressmen and our senators to save our kids' lives. And that push has got to get stronger and stronger by more people.
Right. I agree. I agree totally. On my social media, that's what I post is these articles every single day of kids, dying every day, and people, it's absolutely absurd that 300 people are passing a day. That's like an airplane going down a day. So if an airplane's going down every single day, when is our government going to wake up? It makes me so angry.
Recently, Patty, I did Sam Opizia is a friend of mine and the doctors. He's running for city council, in Philadelphia. We did some shows together about fentanyl and the effects in Kensington. I'm going to be doing a show with the doctor, with John Raschuti, Studio 21, about Kensington. But the thing that people don't understand is Mexico actually uses Kensington and the drug issue and people sleeping all over the street as a commercial in their country. Mexico uses it to stop kids from doing drugs in their third world country. They use actually one of our biggest cities in our country, Philadelphia, Kensington, to show the effects of drug use and the death and the destruction of fentanyl. So it looks like a war-torn city and town when you go into Kensington. And Sam Opizia is doing a lot of work with these kids, the community, and trying to stop the killings by fentanyl. And we're working along with them, doing new shows on it. These are the things that need to be said. And I'm a guy that grew up in the hoods. So, and I talk a lot about the Black community, the Spanish community, because I grew up with them. They're friends of mine. And that needs to be said also. We need these guys that have grown up in my neighborhoods to be fathers of their children and not leave them alone to grow up in the street, because of the numbers of deaths and murders and suicides and the things that are going on, because they're single families. The fathers are absent. And they're starting to step up more and more. There's more community leaders talking about this. And they need to be there for their children. I lost my child because I spent a lot of years in prison. And these are the effects that happen. And it's not solely on that, but the numbers are astronomical for single families that are running their children, and they're running on the street because of fathers being absentee. And we have to take responsibility for that and push that. And when you got these organizations, whether they're Black, Brown, Indian, any organization from any ethnic group, we have to be fathers and mothers at home. We need to be active in our kids' lives.
I think there's also an issue here that we need to look at, is that our government is looking at, I'm going to say this, is at harm reduction. And harm reduction is good, is okay when you're looking at are preventative. Narcan is good. That's all we have. That's all we have right now. But it's not the end all here. There's a bigger issue. There's a bigger problem. And people, in my community, I went to a few meetings, sit around a table and talk about, oh, this is happening. There's no action. Nobody's taking action. Nobody's talking about it. It's all sitting at a table quietly, like this is going on. And no, everything is closed door until I opened a door and put up 4 billboards that said fentanyl poisoning. No, these kids are being poisoned. People, I don't care if they're addicts, or I don't care if they're one-time action here, one-time pill. Here comes my anger now, because I had a mother who couldn't come to my daughter's funeral because she couldn't stand next to a mother who just lost a child. And 2 weeks later, she lost her son to a pill in the same community. Nothing. Nobody talks about it. And it pisses me off because we're losing kids in our community. And these people just sit around a table and talk about nothing. Nothing.
Patty, we have a sponsor on BetterHelp. And not because of my sponsor, because I believe in it. We have to get these kids at young ages when they're having mental issues, before the drug use, before anything. And when you have companies like BetterHelp, and where you could call up, you don't have to be at their office. You could go without a video. You could go just audio. There's things that they don't have to divulge who they are, and they can talk to different therapists and psychologists, and work with them and work through their problems. And if they don't like them, they can change. But the thing is, we have to be active. What's going on now with our children, with mental health, especially after whatever side you're on with the pandemic, people disagree or agree. But all the mental health that happened after the pandemic, these lockdowns, these masks, these insecurities that the kids are having, later on are going to take an effect in their lives where there's drug use because of it. And we have to address it now before they start using those drugs, before they're able to talk. And the problem is, for some reason, it's taboo for people to say they need to talk to somebody about mental health. That's why I'm very active and open about this. I've been seeing therapists my whole life. It will help you, and it'll open you up to be able to have a conversation. And I say it again, for people that don't want to talk to somebody else, you can write us on any of our websites. You can contact us, and we will help you.
I wanted to say that I wanted to reinforce what you guys said, that ignoring the problem, it does not make the problem disappear. And for sure, it doesn't resolve that problem. And I think we need to talk more about it. We need to be more open about it. We need to talk directly to people. Where is the problem? What are the risks? And why we are doing this? And where this can go? I understand the addiction is a problem that someone that has it is not his fault. It's on the brain, The body has taken this medication that unfortunately has some good effects, decrease the pain, gives some good feelings, but also give the addiction. And the body gets used to it and wants it more and more. So I feel those young people and the people who take those opioids are just victims of this drug. And we need to help them. They need to ask for help, but sometimes they don't know how to. And it's the society, it's the family, it's the school, it's the work, it's the government that needs to take that and help those people, because there are people in need, I think. Yeah. So just ignoring it and being indifferent to this, it does not resolve that. And like you said, anybody can be next one.
How do we get them to the next step, Katie? How do we get families or children into understanding it's okay to say I need some help and not
it's interesting that you say that, Kenji, because when you were speaking, I'm thinking, I think it's a generational thing. The younger generation is much better talking about mental health. Our generation, it was, suck it up, move on, pull up your bootstraps and carry on, and you stuffed it all in, which obviously isn't necessarily good either, but it does get you through some things as well. And so, you know, regarding the pandemic, I remember at the time I had 2 in high school yet. And I told them, because, you know, at first, even for the teachers, and it was just chaos, right? Trying to figure out how to do online learning and all this. And I told them, I said, you know, you got through this, you can get through anything in life. Because it was just chaotic for the whole country and, you know, the whole world, really. But there are things that come up that I even notice now in myself that, oh, maybe this is a result of what we just went through. And so to actually talk to your children, which is, you know, again, I didn't grow up that way. You know, for instance, you were talking about dads and fatherhood. You know, my generation, if we weren't talking about the Cubs or the weather, we didn't talk to my dad. So that was all he wanted to talk about. It was just a different mindset. You know, he went to work, provided for the family, and you know, dads are a lot more involved now, and I think that's a great thing. That hopefully kids feel more comfortable talking about things. But again, sometimes when it gets to this serious of a level, they do clam up. So I always say, if you have one good girlfriend, that solves a lot of problems too. But BetterHelp, like you said, it's a fantastic situation that we didn't have years ago. It's online now, and you know, you can be as anonymous pretty much as you want to be.
So Kathleen, at that time, I just wanted to mention, in our generation or previous generation, the information was very channeled, school, family, and it was not this social media and this internet that we have today.
Right.
Our kids and our generation, new generation that is coming up, is exposed to so much information out there, the internet, and the talking and chatting with each other, with people that they know, they don't know. So it's not just the family now that gives that information or is directing or controlling it. You don't know, you are at work, parents are at work, and the kids or the young people are under the influence of this massive information or stimulation from media, social media. And that's the problem today, I think. It's not a problem, it's just the reality that we are living. Right. And we have to adjust to that and find the ways to make it work for us, not be victims of this social media or this internet or this information that we get. We have to be selective and make sure this is on our benefit, not make us victims.
Correct. Yeah, that's a good point that you bring up. That may have been a good thing, you know, having the traditional household where you came home from school and your mom was there. So yeah, it's a very good point.
So this is why Patty said, she mentioned this in social media and Instagram and everywhere, that we have to talk about all this stuff. Social media is not all beautiful and what we see. It's also a reality that we are living in. And talking about the problems also, at least we discuss and we try to find solution for that. So,
right, social media is, you know, can be the highway for these kids to gain access to the drug. It's been, you know, Snapchat, and that's, many of them have gotten their pills from there. So, you know, it's important to make sure they're getting the right information. That's the thing, finding the way to get the right information to them, opening that dialogue and that, you know, communication is the key, and making sure that there's enough of it out there so that we're overriding all the other information that they're getting.
That's a good point.
You know, can be
well, one of the things that is going on, and we got to, for the parents that are watching or the kids that are watching, is stop ordering pills online, diet pills or anything. They're laced with fentanyl. You have to know where you're buying those pills from. And if they're not from a pharmacy or a doctor directly involved with you, do not buy online anymore. There's several kids that just recently took diet pills that they bought online through Canada and passed away from being murdered by fentanyl. So online is not safe to purchase pills. And if you're addicted, again, you're gonna, you know, we're here to try to help you. There's plenty of people like Patty that are out there now that we're advocating, trying to put our hands out and trying to help the kids that are in trouble. There's Dee Gillen that I spoke about recently over the last year or so, that's involved with the Black Poster Project for people that lost their family members. So there's different organizations. you can contact them. You can contact Katie, and we'll put you in touch with organizations you feel comfortable with. And again, you need to reach out and talk to somebody. Do not sit in the house suffering yourself. And if you're an addict, there's nothing wrong with having an addiction, a mental issue. No one's perfect. This is human nature. We all are struggling through something. You're not alone. Don't feel that you're alone. You can reach out to us through our website, through johnelite.com. You can reach out through my Instagram. You can reach out through Patty. Where can they find you?
I have soundsofsarah.org. You can reach out through there. We also have our 988 in our country here that you can reach out to for crisis suicide prevention is our 988. So if you dial that, you can get a crisis counselor who can direct you locally in your area for any support services. So that's also available for anyone as well. And yeah, remember, 6 out of 10 pills are laced with fentanyl. It's known. It's those are the numbers. So you're putting, it's like playing Russian roulette.
Definitely. That's exactly what I say. And if you could, Patty, I know your logo is the butterfly on the soundsofsarah.org website. Could you tell people about that? Because I think that's part of what we're doing right here today.
Yeah. So the butterfly represents it's a combination of butterflies, and the purpose of that is because my daughter, I have a letter from her that she wrote when she was in treatment, and it talks about how she struggled. We did find some other writings from her that she really struggled with speaking her voice in her life, and that she wanted to have relationships. And the letter is very, very much from her soul and her heart, and how she never really could talk about her feelings. And so the butterfly is little tiny butterflies that come together and are represented of all those that are lost from fentanyl. And when people come together, and bring a voice, they can make change. And so that's my purpose and my mission, is to come together with others and be a voice for all those lost, to make change and make sure that they have a face and a voice that carries on.
Patty, I know you're, very emotional and you really loved your daughter like most parents. I cry often for the people that are watching and think that this is an easy thing. I try not to cry on air. I try to show strength for everyone. I cry to my friend, the doctor constantly, to Katie, people that I'm familiar with. It's a struggle for all of us. It's not going to go away. We're going to live with this the rest of our lives, day and night. So the people that think they're not, they're alone, you're not. You can reach out to any of us. Genti, where can they reach you if they wanted to speak to you also?
My Instagram is Genti Antoshkazi, first name and last name. I wanted to say that for John and Patty, and I just know Patty today, and I know John is a good friend of mine from long time now. I think that you guys have a lot of courage and to talk about this and to help other people. I know John with his Instagram, he has a lot of followers and a lot of people admire him, but the message that you guys bring in today is very strong. And I'm sure it's going to help a lot of people who are struggling today, or they probably lost their ones. But I wanted to say, you guys are strong people. You have a lot of courage. And this is a very, very strong message you're giving today.
Yeah, I have to agree. It's a parent's worst nightmare. There's nothing worse that could happen. And I hope that people show you a lot of love in the comments as well, because your bravery to talk about this, I just admire you for your strength and courage, like Kitty was saying, because I know I would just be a puddle of tears in the corner somewhere, and to be able to talk about it and help others is just an incredible aspect of your love for your children, to be able to do this for other people that you wouldn't wish this on your worst enemy.
Patty, I want to thank you also for all the work you're doing for our children and for all the other families and their children. I mean, it's incredible work you're doing, and I know the struggle you must be going through every day, because we're dealing with it every day. And the more you're doing this work, it hits you every day. What happened, because you're constantly dealing in death, unfortunately. But at the same time, you're saving so many lives. So I really appreciate what you're doing and the people that are listening. I hope you understand the pain and suffering she's going through every day to try to save lives for the rest of our communities and families. So thank you again, Patty. And I hope that, you know, we stay friends and stay in touch with each other, and we continue to the battle to save some lives.
Thank you, John, for everything you do. I appreciate you and all you're doing. And thank you for having me today. I appreciate that.
Anybody that wants to follow, again, you can follow through our websites, our Instagrams. I'll be doing a show with Sam Apizio and the doctor next week at Studio 21 with John Raschuti, and we'll be covering another episode of fentanyl, opioids, and the destruction of our communities and the children's and family lives by this weapon, this bomb, this arsenic, whatever word you want to use, but it's a weapon against our society and our kids. We need to do something about it, save our communities. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in again. Subscribe, hit the like buttons, ask any questions you want, and we'll try to get back to everybody. Katie, you have anything?
I was just going to say again, you know, this would be one of those episodes where you would want to share it with a loved one, possibly save some lives. And, you know, pretty much every family has been affected at this point in our country. Just to keep it out there, and we'll keep working for change.
All right, everybody. Hey, enjoy your rest of your day the best you can, and have a good weekend. And I'll speak to everybody soon. Thank you again. Thank you, Patty, once again.
Thank you, Patty.
Thank you, guys.